Can you imagine experiencing your life as easy and peaceful most of the time, even when things around you seem to be in chaos? It truly is a possibility. That is the gift of living with soul and ego in harmony, living in self-awareness without judgment. Get ready to listen, share, and experience the magic that is energy medicine. Now, here is the host of Soul Healing with Traci Trimble, Doctor of Energy Medicine, Traci Trimble.
Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Traci Trimble. I'm a doctor of energy medicine, and as a bioenergetic therapist, a spiritual and energy worker, I specialize in treating both the cause and the effects of depression, anxiety, acute stress, and chronic pain from the perspective of the layers of energy that surround you, your bioenergetic field, the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. My passion is teaching energy medicine such as Reiki, chakra dancing, and Hatha yoga. My gift is to not only be able to see through the layers of your bioenergetic field, but also the ability to connect with your permission directly to the voice of your soul energy. Whether it's quietly whispering or screaming for help, I'm here to support you. As a trained talk therapist, I have the joy of speaking with your ego energy, where it then becomes my job to guide and teach you how to bring your soul and ego back into harmony. And that's what this 50-minute weekly session called Soul Healing is about. Today, we're going to be discussing your authentic self. I want to share with you a metaphysical story, a story that I believe wholeheartedly because I witness it as truth each time I connect to a soul. I am truly blessed and honored to have the ability and capacity and the privilege to connect with so many people on a weekly basis. Even more so, truly grateful for the global Soul Healing with Traci Trimble, PhD, has been experiencing. This week alone, I had commentary from New South Wales in Australia, Dubai in Texas, and I'm from a little small town, population 22,000, just outside of Toronto, Ontario. So that's pretty exciting for a Canadian girl. Thank you. Today, I want to talk to you about this story that is universal. I'm going to ask you to open your mind, your heart, and to trust that what I'm sharing with you is possible should you choose to believe it. So today, I want to talk about our authentic self. What happens is we forget who we truly are, who we are meant to be, which is spiritual beings having a human experience. And we get so caught up in that human experience that we actually believe that we're responsible for carrying the weight of the entire world on our shoulders. Consciously begin to accept rules and beliefs that others have created, and we leave absolutely no room, no wiggle for alternative thoughts, beliefs, habits. Today that you hear this story and you create room for opportunities to flourish. I want to share with you what I believe is our story as human beings. So let's get started. It is my belief that every single one of us, most specifically human beings, come from a singular space. This space is 100% energetic. It's etheric in nature, which means it can't be tasted or touched or even seen, but you can know in the core of being that it is truth, should you have faith. Center of this energy, I believe, is the most powerful, omnipresent, and creative source. This universe that we have been calling it is a singular consciousness. It's energetic in nature. Not only is it built up of this source energy, putting absolutely all religions aside, this is God to me, the universe, the space in which the omnipresent creative energy of Source exists within us and around us. Within this space called the universe exists also what we can know as wisdom. Wisdom is every thought, feeling, emotion, and experience ever accumulated over all of the infinity of time. In metaphysics, we call this wisdom space or this wisdom energy the Akashic records, the place in which all infinite knowledge is stored. Around this infinite knowledge is an impenetrable force field of love. This love energy is warrior energy. Its purposefulness is to ensure that Source and wisdom always know safety, security, and support. And in the confines of this space is what's called fringe energy. Fringe is a very curious energy that holds the whole together. This singular consciousness is made up of curiosity, warrior, wisdom, and source energy. This is where we come from, but it's also who we are. Every single thing on this planet called Earth is energetic. It's a frequency or vibration, and its low common denominator. It's cellular. If the radio and you could have a visual, imagine that Source, wisdom, warrior, and fringe could be seen as a cell underneath a microscope, a single entity. That's who we are. Human beings are billions of these cells combined together, vibrating at a frequency just different enough that each of us is individual. This is our authentic self. This is our truth. We are spiritual beings. But the truth is also we decided through our free will and to have a human experience. So let me put this in form of story. So let's imagine that at one point you were a beautiful piece of fringe energy. And you went to Source itself and you said, hold on a second. Why am I fringe energy? Aren't I warrior or wisdom? And Source, with a depth of kindness and compassion, actually laughs at you and says, you don't even know what warrior or wisdom means. Why do you want to be something that you don't even know what it means? And in that singular moment, you make the most profound statement that changes everything, that shifts you out of singular consciousness into individual freedom and autonomy. You say, do Source, because there has to be more than justice. There has to be more than singular consciousness. And Source lights up and says to you, there is. There is much more than singular consciousness. The challenge is that in order to experience such, you have to leave this space of 100% energy. And you have to travel through space and time to what is believed to be 100% matter, universe of physical energy. And in our particular cases, we chose human beings. Human beings live what is called a lifetime. That lifetime begins at a singular moment at birth, and it ends at a singular moment called death. And every moment in between is a beautiful series of ups and downs where we are collecting thoughts, and feelings, emotions. We're experiencing free will and autonomy. For some of us, that is a singular moment, a split second. But for others, that can be 100+ years. But it's exactly the same for each of us. We are born, we experience space and time, and we perish physically. Let me explain what I mean by that. I want to tell you who you truly are, who your true self is. And with every fiber of my being, because of my gifts, my capacity to see into the human bioenergetic field, my ability to hear soul stories, I know that this is truth. And I wish for you to believe this too, or at least believe the possibility. Because this is who you are. You are a piece of universal source itself, called your soul. But you are a piece of universal warrior energy as well, called your ego. And through this most incredible process, called conception to birth, you're also a physical body. You are a physical body. We are meant to be a singular, energetic body. Soul, ego, and body in harmony. We more casually call that body, mind, and spirit in the metaphysical world. When this unit of soul and ego have collected all of the experiences that we agreed to, the physical body perishes because there's no more space and there's no more time to collect experiences. Good, bad, or ugly, we have collected everything that we can, whether that was a second in time or 100+ years. And when that body perishes, we go home. We go back to the universe. And one incredibly empowering thing happens every time. Every thought, feeling, emotion, idea, and experience that we communicated, that we experienced, that we held onto, good, bad, beautiful, or ugly, gets deposited in the Akashic Records. It becomes part of the infinite wisdom of the universe. And in that moment, because we have experienced free will and autonomy through our human nature, we have choice. We can stay and be keeper of the records and be wisdom, part of the whole consciousness. Or we can become warrior energy, also part of whole consciousness. Or we can fringe energy and do it over and over and over. This is the truth of who we are, our authentic self. We are universal life force energy. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And here is the coolest part. This experience is not random. We chose exactly when, where, why, and who we were going to be in this experience before we even got here. This is our contract with Source. We're going to take our first break of the show. When we return, I'm going to explain in detail what this contract is for you and what it means, and how you remember what your contract is. You're listening to Soul Healing with Traci Trimble. Thank you for being part of a global community. We'll be right back.
Graham.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Traci, and I'm here to teach you metaphysical lessons in self-awareness without judgment. If you've not already found me on Facebook, please try my personal page, Traci Trimble, or my business page, True Path Consulting with Traci Trimble, PhD. Let's get back to our show topic, your authentic self. We talked about where we came from. We talked about our purposefulness in this life, collecting thoughts, feelings, emotions, experiences of free will and autonomy. We also talked about the truth of the fact that we didn't come here for no reason. We signed a contract. In contract, I believe that we agreed to 3 very specific things that I'm not going to go into right now, but they're upcoming shows. So please stay tuned for that. The first thing that we agreed is whether we are going to be man or woman. The reason we agree to one or the other is because they are completely different vibrational experiences. We're going to choose our story based on the point of view of male or female. But we're also going to choose the way in which we hold our own space. Feminine energy holds the passive, wise, and nurturing. And masculine energy holds the of aggressive, controlling, and dominating. Either good or bad, both having their own value. We also choose the way in which we are going to navigate the outside world. Choose whether we're going to be a giver, a taker, an egalitarian, a parent, or a child energy. Stay tuned for more information on that. We also decide our plot line of exactly what it is that we're here to experience. In my particular case, my contract was experience purposefulness, passion, and balance, both the beneficial and non-beneficial sides. I agreed to collect that information. Another big piece of what we agreed to is the way in which we get here. This conception to birth process, as Source explains, is a very tedious process. It has moments that are challenging. The biggest challenge is the fact that during this process from conception to birth, we are transitioning from a whole consciousness into a singular awareness. We are truly alone for the first time ever, except that we are being formed inside of another human body. And Source says to us, in this process, it's essential that you mind your own business, because whatever's happening is not about you. It's happening to her, for her, and because of her. So please mind your own business. We have a really hard time with it. And I think it's for this very specific reason. We choose our biological mother. Good, bad, beautiful, or ugly. We've chosen because her storyline will feed in. It will give us a platform from which to experience our true path that we agreed to when we signed our soul contract. But also we chose her because she's going to do something that we wouldn't have been able to influence. She chooses him, our biological father. And it's through the two of them coming together in one sexually intimate moment, good, bad, beautiful, or ugly, that we are created. Sperm and egg come together to form a single neural pathway. And that becomes our doorway from spiritual into human. Source realizes that this conception to birth process that is hopefully 9 months long is precarious, and knows from the history of space and time that we won't remember our contract, get caught up in her story. So inside of our cellular memory, Source gifts us with 3 core values. Deep inside of our cellular memory is planted the exact same vibration and frequency of all of the experiences we agreed to. And the reason that we were given this gift is because in space and time, human being, like energy, it's like energy. So even though on a conscious level, we may have forgotten our true self, we may have forgotten our authentic contract, but we will be drawn to people, places, things, scenes, situations, and scenarios that are our truth, that gift us the opportunity to fully and completely experience that which we agreed to. Here's the challenge. We sign this contract, but so does Source. Source signs the agreement and says, in this lifetime, this human being experience, we are going to be gifted with free will and autonomy. We will not be interfered with under any circumstance. However, should we choose to ask guidance, healing, or protection, the universe will provide. Ask, and it is given. So here we are. We have this contract. We're simply waiting, possibly lifetimes, for them to find one another, to create the doorway to our story. And this is our opportunity. We begin the conception to birth process. Our truth buried deep within the layers of our bioenergetic field, deep within our memory. And I know that this is true. And as weird or as hooey as it sounds, I witness it every day, sometimes 25 or 30 times a day. Every time I have to go into someone's bioenergetic field and to hear their soul, I know this is true. I know within you is the energy of truth. You may actually already know it. You just don't realize. The challenge is that we got caught up in whatever was happening to our mother during the conception to birth process, and we stole from her habits and beliefs and experiences that we never had, that we should have never taken a hold of. We literally chose to become responsible for carrying her story. We unconsciously accepted the rules and beliefs that she had in the moment. We had no right to do that. And because of that, because of our misunderstanding of how this universe worked at the time, how this space and reacted from like energy attracting like energy, we did something with the best of intention that caused us harm and suffering. We stole beliefs and habits from our biological mother's experience that have covered up, silenced our soul contract. It is no fault of hers. We cannot blame our mothers or our grandmothers. We chose, through our free will and autonomy, to not listen to the advice source, to mind our own business. That process of conception to birth was simply designed to form a human body, to give us the opportunity to process and transit out of 100% energy into 100% matter, physical. So what happened? Those 3 core values were covered by what I call a fear story. we're going to take our second break right now. When we return, I want to share with you exactly how this fear story has been created. In most cases, I can even share with you, should you to gift me the opportunity to hear your soul's voice, exactly what your fear stories are. When we come back, we're going to talk about the conception to birth process. We'll be right back.
Now back to the program.
Welcome. My name is Traci, and I am host today. We are talking about your authentic self. The hope is that as I tell you this story on a very conscious level, that your subconscious voice, the quiet of your soul, is percolating, and you're beginning to remember true and authentic self. Before we went to break, we talked about our contract. We talked about how we got here. And I want to share more detail on that process called concept birth. Now, in this 9-month process, science has proven that 3 times we annihilate ourselves. Each of these times, called zygote, embryo, and fetus, we were once something. For some unknown reason, we become something else. We begin out as sperm and egg, and at zygote we become a single-cell neuro pathway. And then we become a multi-celled organism. And just a short time later, we become physical matter. Science says this is simply the process in which human being is formed. In metaphysics, and most specifically in my experience, I disagree. Each of those apparent traumas, I believe, are moments in which we experience fully and completely an actual trauma that our mother goes through. So let me explain this to you. Imagine that in this moment, an egg coming together, you begin your journey to human being. And you're traveling through space and time. And for the first time ever, you have singular awareness. You are an individual. You are your own thoughts, your own feelings and experiences. And you think this is amazing. And wham, something happens. In that moment of something happening, you have your very first criticism, judgment, and you say, "Ew, this place is bad." Now, what's happened, real or perceived, has happened to your biological mother, and you have labeled gross. Real or perceived, we have no idea what has actually happened. She could have physically abused. She could have been in fear and in danger. Or Johnny could have jumped out and went, boo. Either way, split second, her sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system goes into overwhelm. Her heart and her brain create a chemical reaction called adrenaline. And that adrenaline floods her entire system, warning her that she is in danger. In that moment, there's not enough joy or serotonin being produced to wash away the adrenaline, and she goes into a trauma. That chemical begins to seep into her muscles, her tissues, her bones, and her organs, and it pulls you. And you have created this belief that this place is bad. And in that moment, unknowing or unaware, you place yourself in the universal life force energy of unconditional love. The challenge is you, soul and Eden, have forgotten that source told you that like energy attracts like energy. And you now have locked yourself in what this trauma was. In this moment, should you decide to go home, that is your perfect right. It is your contract. It is unlikely at zygote she'd even know she was pregnant. So it's the perfect time to go, but you didn't. You decided to continue, and you started forming a heart and a brain, and you think this is incredible, and wham, it's happened again. She goes into fight, flight, or freeze. And in this moment, you realize something. And you create a belief. You are alone and you're unprotected. What you've realized is that you are no longer a part of the whole. You do not have access to universal life force protection. But you're also not a human being either. You also have not a memory of experienced time, so you don't know how long 9 months is. So you truly feel alone and unprotected. In this moment, should you decide to go back home, it would be a miscarriage. She would know. It caused harm and suffering. However, it is exactly as it should be, because neither you nor her would have been able to fulfill this particular. But you decided to keep going, and you started forming muscles and tissues and bones, and oh my goodness, does it not happen again? And in this moment, you create what the Christians have labeled original sin. You create the belief before you're even born that this place is bad, you're unprotected, and somehow this has to be your own fault. And you label yourself as, I am bad. And this is the moment in metaphysics that we call the trend. In Eastern medicine, it's best known as yin and yang. Soul and ego actually split into separate entities. Soul says, I am passive and wise, committed to the contract. And ego says, screw that. I am aggressive and masculine. I am here entirely to protect this body from this thing called human. In this moment, ego does something with the most beautiful of intention, but with the most tragic of results. Inside our cellular memory, ego places 3 beacons with the intention that they are to warn us on a conscious level. And people, places, things, scenes, situations, or scenarios begin to prove to us that this place is alone and unprotected, so ego can defend and protect us. But that's not how it works in this space and time. Energy attracts like energy, and ego has placed over top of our contractual beacons these energies that actually cause us harm and suffering. And in this moment, in frustration, soul says, ego, please don't do this. You're changing the trajectory of our experience. And ego, in an ungracious way, says, you know what? This isn't working. I'm going to move to the brain. You go to the heart. We can't be together. And soul and ego literally separate and become actual separate organs within our human structure. And in this moment, in hopes of compromising, they come up with an agreement. Ego says, you think you're so right, soul? Well, let's put it to test. For the next 5 years, I'm going to collect all the evidence that we should be afraid of this place called human. You can collect all of the evidence that you want that we're here on a mission. And at the end of that 5 years, if soul was able to accumulate enough evidence that our soul concept is purposeful, we follow a flowing trajectory. And some do make it through to this flow, but most don't. Because during our 0 to 5 years, we actually rarely experience free will and autonomy. We rarely get to make our own choices. We are independent on other human beings that think they know what is best for us as a society without knowing at all what our contract is. If ego wins and collects enough evidence that we need to be afraid, we spend our lives chasing happy and fearing sad. We don't know because we can't remember our soul contract. We're just scared. We're just scared. But if we know that we have an authentic self deep inside of our cellular memory, if we can trust our soul to live, to feel from our heart what our truth is, we have the capacity to eliminate our fears. But we have to become aware. We have to become aware without judgment. We have to mind our business, to figure out our truth. And we do that by listening to our soul's voice. We do that by unraveling ourselves from all of the old story illusions that are compelling and controlling us because we've experienced fear most of our lives. This is the story of our true and authentic self. This is our metaphysical beginnings. The opportunity here is to realize that we have the capacity to bring soul and ego back into harmony. Ego is warrior energy. Its purposefulness was to navigate the outside as whatever energy you agreed to. So, for example, of those energies, giver, taker, egalitarian, parent, and child, we have very specific coping and defense mechanisms built into cellular memory. We have in alignment and out of alignment energies. And by knowing what our navigation style is, we know how ego can protect us from the outside world without consuming the fear that we stole from our mother's experience. It was never meant to be an influencer of how we experienced this time. It was for her, and we took a piece of her as we were born. In my opinion, this is postpartum depression. We've taken a piece of her, and energetically, we have the opportunity to give it back. And when we give back, we heal our generations. We give that back. It's fear for us, but it was her contract. So it's not fear energy when we release it from us, give it back to her. And she then in turn can give back to her mother. And you, should you have already created other human beings, change their energy. Because they no longer can hold on to something you released. It's just energy. It is time for us to become self-aware without judgment, to remember our true and authentic selves so that we can heal, this human existence. We weren't meant to be in pain and suffering. We're creating that to protect ourselves from something that isn't even true. Imagine that what I'm sharing with is possible. and that we each have the power within us to make a difference. It's time for our third break of the show. When we get back, I'll share with you part 2 of this conversation. Next week's session, we dive out of our authentic self, which is our story of our true self, and into who our true self is being in this moment. Who are we actually being? We'll be back.
Many of us believe that feeling sick and tired is just the way life is, so we get stuck in that habit. What if we are not meant to live in pain and suffering at all? By tuning in to Soul Healing Radio Show with Doctor of Energy Medicine, Traci Trimble, you will learn to eliminate the habit of suffering through self-awareness without judgment, therefore bringing soul and ego closer together. Are you ready to learn, share, heal, grow, and prosper? Listen for Soul Healing with Traci Trimble, Ph.D., every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Calling all of the beautiful female souls out there. Are you ready for Soul Healing Circle? Every weekday, except Wednesday, live or online from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You are invited to join Traci Trimble, Doctor of Energy Medicine, as she holds sacred space-sharing metaphysical knowledge, teaching tools to bring soul and ego into harmony, and gifting a 30-minute bioenergetic healing guided meditation. It is only $40 Canadian for unlimited private access for each calendar month. You will find more information at tracitrimble.ca in the services section. This is Soul Healing Radio Show with Doctor of Energy Medicine, Traci Trimble, Ph.D. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255, Canada 613-800-8736, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Traci at tracitrimble.ca. Now back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for listening to Soul Healing with Traci Trimble, Ph.D. I am truly and deeply grateful to be in service to you. If anything you've heard here today resonates with you, please feel free to share it. If you need additional information, please reach out to me by email, Traci, Traci, at tracitrimble.ca. Let's get back to the show. We've just spent the last hour talking about our authentic self, where we come from. We are a universal life force energy that has chosen human being to accumulate a series of experiences based on a contractual obligation to the universe. Most of us have forgotten what that is, and most of us are struggling in unconscious incompetence. Having this awareness, even giving it a moment's thought, you are beginning to percolate closer to conscious competence. You have the capacity to heal yourself. Let me share with you, for hopefully the millionth time, what my contract is. My name is Traci Lynn. I am a woman with masculine energy navigating as a taker. Contract is purposefulness, passion, and balance, and my ego fear story is judgment, vengeance or anger, and blame. By having this knowledge, I have the capacity to choose with conscious competence experiences from the place of purposefulness, passion, and balance. inside of my cellular being, inside of my universal backpack. I want to do my best to accumulate only the experiences that I agree to on a regular basis go through and declutter my backpack, removing the non-beneficial experiences I attach to, in hopes that I live a long, prosperous, and loving life filled with the experiences of my contract. And I ask that for you as well. This knowledge gives you a platform to move from. This show, all of the episodes I've created in the past and all I will create in the future are entirely aimed at you becoming self-aware without you having the tools that it takes to remember your authentic self. So please join me for the second part of this conversation next week when we talk about true self. This true self phrase gets thrown around a lot in spirit and self-care. So I want to share with you what it actually means. But I also want you to deeply understand what it means for you. True self is, what our responsibilities are, and how we have the capacity to literally stop the pain and suffering in this space and time. The challenge is that pain and suffering has to start with as the individual. And unfortunately, society thinks it's selfish and manipulative and bad. Join me next week to talk about truth. It seems like that's all the time that we have today. So as always, I'm incredibly grateful to have spent this time with you. If you need me, you can find me at tracitrimble.ca. I now and am always grateful to have this time with you.
Thank you for choosing to listen to Soul Healing with Traci Trimble, PhD. We hope you'll join us. Until then, give yourself permission to learn, share, heal, and grow